This is the story of a life transformation. A successful GP working in a doctor's surgery prompted to turn her life upside down and become an artist and Reiki practitioner. Hello from Skiathos, the Greek island where we're exploring the relationship between landscape, soulscape, and a creative life. I'm Rick, an artist and mystic from England, and I spend my time here making art and working with the wild energies of the island. In this episode, I talk with the wonderful Ranaa Farooq. I've shared in a previous episode, episode 7, of how my life transformed from being an ordained Christian minister to an artist mystic living on a Greek island. And Ranaa's transformation is no less profound. I think you'll find lots of touching points and moments of inspiration for your own journey here. We talk about what prompts these moments of transformation, what it means to listen to our heart intuition, and how Ranaa worked through some of the challenges she faced on the journey, and what it means for her to move from the rational, science-based world of medicine to the much more intuitive space of Reiki and energy work, and how she reconciles the two. It's a fascinating conversation, and Ranaa is a really wonderful human being to encounter. So sit back, listen, and enjoy. So Ranaa, it's so good to see you. Now, I was trying to think how long ago it was that we met. It's maybe 3 years ago, and we both had a studio. Maybe it was a little. We both had a studio in the city centre in Sheffield, didn't we?
That's right. That's right. Thank you for having me, by the way. It's great to be here as well. But yeah, no, I think it was roughly about 3 years ago in
Yes.
at Matilda Street.
And we both have these art studios in this old office block in the city centre in Sheffield, and I love visiting artists in their studios because I always feel that you just get a sense of their soul, their deep who they are. It's a really personal space to move into, isn't it? And I came into your studio and just immediately felt at peace. It was, I mean, my studio is always really messy. Not only was it tidy and these beautiful abstract paintings on the wall, but just your energy and the energy of the space was like peaceful, reflective. It felt like a really wonderful sanctuary space to step into. Now, I can remember that the first time we met.
And thank you. It's lovely to hear.
But you've not always been in the art studio, have you? You've traded the doctor's surgery for the art studio. So this series of videos, I'm with having conversations about people who've gone through these transformative moments in their lives and what that meant, and you know, sometimes lives taken apart and re put back together. So yeah, say a little bit about that. You're a doctor, and now you're an artist and a Reiki practitioner, an energy worker. Yeah, where did that change all come from?
But so I was a GP in the NHS for a number of years, and lots of things that I enjoyed about medicine. I very much love the scientific aspect of medicine. I love science, and I love people. I have a genuine desire to help people. So there were lots that I loved, but there was lots, as you can imagine. It's a really stressful job, and I just felt at times that I wasn't doing my best. I wasn't able to really connect with the patient in front of me for a number of reasons: time constraints, the fact that we're focusing on an issue and it feels like there's something else that's not being addressed, and you don't have time to get into that. So these kind of, this slowly crept up over the years, and over time, I felt like I was burning out. Excuse me. I was burning out a little bit, and then I'd had moments where I'd thought, is there anything else that I can do? I'd always loved art as a child, and there'd always been this little voice inside that said, you should have done something creative. You should have become an artist, or a graphic designer, or an architect, or something quite structured and but still creative. So I'd had these thoughts for a number of years, and didn't do anything really about them. Life drags you back into its routine as it does. But then the pandemic happened, and in 2020, I just remember there was a point I was in my kitchen, and I remember it quite vividly because we just listened to some news broadcast, and Boris Johnson had been on talking about this new virus and how there was going to be a shutdown. Um, and I just, for the first moment in my life, I kind of just took time, and I paused and I asked myself, I was like, is this what I want to be doing for the rest of my life? And I'd asked myself this before, but I'd always quickly kind of shut that thought down and thought, well, what else is there? What else can you do? This is what you've trained for. You've invested so much time, money, and energy into this. What else can you do? But at that time in the pandemic, I had two younger children. I thought, well, I've never really been truly happy doing what I'm doing, and now there's this potentially life-threatening virus that nobody really knows what it can do. And I asked myself this. I said, if I lost my life doing this, would it be worth it? And that in itself felt like such a big question. Um, it kind of felt like, of course, you have to because when you go into medicine, it is like you take the Hippocratic Oath and you feel like you're joining this tribe, this vocation, and you kind of give your life over in a way. In
Yeah.
a sense, there is that kind of unsaid expectation. And we had during the pandemic as well, eventually we had the clapping for heroes every Thursday. So there was a real sense that this is my heroic duty. What else can I do? And so that, it was a big question, but I stayed with it. I felt all the discomfort come up. And for the first time, I just said, no, look, there's some, I need to deal with this. So I just remember going within a little bit and just kind of really asking for guidance from within. And then what happened was the feeling that came back, or the thought that came back, was there's something else. You don't have to do
Mm.
this. There's something else. And that really was the spark for me then. And I was lucky I was able to take a little break. I mean, work had kind of dried up at that point because at that point I was a locum GP, which meant I wasn't fixed at any particular
Yeah.
practice. And at the start of the pandemic, everybody was doing telephone. Kind of for a little while, it was more telephone focused. And so work had slowed down a little bit initially, and then I thought, well, this is the chance. Who knows if I can do this again? So I took a bit of time out, and from that, I started doing a lot of self-development, started working through thoughts and beliefs that I'd held on to for a long time, and gradually, um, you started meditating, and then really the pivotal thing was I reconnected with my painting, because I'd listened to a podcast that said that often what's going to bring you joy in your life, or a hint at what a career that might be good for you is, there's a clue often in childhood, in what
Mm.
you enjoyed in childhood. And so I started painting again, but it wasn't what I'm doing at the moment, which is abstract. It was more kind of seascapes and watercolor paintings, and so on. And I enjoyed it, but it led me down a journey of discovering abstract painting, which really spoke to me. And I, yeah, basically did an online course, taught myself how to paint. It was terrible. The work I was,
Well, abstract
producing
painting is
was.
really hard. Abstract painting is really difficult to do well, isn't it? That's why I don't do it.
I mean, your work's amazing, as it. So to me, that is difficult what you're doing. But I think I didn't even really. I think what helped me was that I didn't have an arts background.
Yeah.
I didn't have any formal knowledge of the rules, as it were. What's easy, what's difficult, what colors should
Mm.
go together, shouldn't go together. I mean, I did learn some color theory, but in hindsight, I think the fact that I didn't have a formal background meant that I was kind of freer. I had that freedom to just explore in my own way. Um, because it's interesting you say that. So since then, every artist I've met, or a lot of artists I've met, have said, "Oh, abstract's really hard. I can never do that. I can't do that." And it's just interesting to me because I think because of the way perhaps I framed it in my mind, it was more of a, oh no, I love this. I want to learn how to do it. Surely it can't be that difficult. I
No,
can
I
I
love
can do
that.
it.
That's actually that's a really interesting area to it. We're not going to talk too much about this because there's loads of other interesting things to talk about. But because I kind of self-taught like you art, and it was only in my 40s that I actually did some formal art training, and it kind of closes down possibilities in lots of ways, that kind of formal training, like you when you really don't know anything about it, you can just kind of leap in and enjoy and see. If someone says at the start, oh no, abstract painting's the hardest to do, then you'd be like, oh no. But to be able to just go, oh no, this is what's bringing me life. Let me go for it. Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I was really interested in
absolutely.
what you said about right at the start of your story, is that as you were a doctor and you started to listen to the intuitive heart. Was that like the first time you'd ever done that, or what was the kind of, and what does that even look like? Is it going out for a
Mm.
walk and looking at a river, or is it doing some meditation? Or what does that look like, and how did you go about that?
Done
Mm,
that. I think the honest answer is I had tried. I
mm,
had definitely had moments that I'd without perhaps labeling it as such, but there were moments in my life where, we all naturally go inwards a little bit and we do self-reflect. But I hadn't really done it in an intentional way.
mm,
I'd tried to meditate in the past, but again, it's so interesting because it was all those preconceived ideas about what meditation means, about that means that you're a certain, you're more of a yoga person, or that you need a mat and you need, so all of those things I think had colored my view of meditation in the past. But when I actually decided to take time and reconnect with what's in here, I started to do things like going for a walk. So when we were allowed to go out for walks and things, that was such a it was just it was such an amazing time for me because it sounds so simple. And I'd gone for walks in the past, but this time I wasn't just in my head. I was kind of in, like, I was making it very mindful walk. I was noticing what was around me. I was noticing sensations in my body. I was trying to notice what thoughts were coming in. So, and these are the kind of practices that I did. So, walking and then just sitting in nature. Um, and just again, just noticing, just observing what I felt and what I was thinking. And then I did other things that were a little bit more structured, like journaling. I've never really done journaling in the past. I started doing that. Um, I started keeping like a gratitude, I did all the things that we hear of the gratitude journal. But I do consider myself, I did consider myself to be a grateful person. But what I realized was it was a very cognitive gratitude. It was very like, I know I'm grateful for these things. But this time I was actually connecting it with here. I was connecting it with feeling. And I think that was the key difference. So I suppose for the first time, I just had a more of an awareness of what I was feeling physically, emotionally, mentally, which I hadn't really, perhaps I'd had glimpses of in the past, but I'd shut it down very quickly, or I'd distracted
mm.
myself because that felt uncomfortable. And so, as we do, we start watching Netflix or distract ourselves with my, kids or life in general.
Yeah, I think these moments of that kind of shift of really starting to be aware of our body energies, or if you want to call it soul energy, or just those deeper intuitive voices, needs to come with a real health warning. Because if you start doing that kind of work, your life is going to change. If you start following that intuitive voice, the heart voice, you can't follow keep on down the same tracks your life is in, and it moves into this space of real, not just inner transformation, where we're changing the way we're relating to the energies in our bodies and our feelings and so on, but sometimes these real practical changes, like, giving up your job as a doctor to go and be a painter in an old office block in Sheffield. What
Mm.
what did you get to moments where you were like, hang on, what on earth am I doing? Am I crazy? How do you kind of move through those moments?
So one of the, so I remember one of the first things actually that I did that really kind of helped me to move through this was I would take walks in the local cemetery.
Hmm.
And what I would do, so a bit of a warning, this is going to get a little bit kind of,
Go for it.
um, morbid, I guess, but I think that's important. We have to face the reality of life that there is death, and I think just facing that reality initially that this life isn't forever. And I would sit in the cemetery and I would look at the gravestones and read the inscriptions and just tell myself that okay, you're going to be there very not in not too distant a future. What is it that you don't want to regret? What is it that you don't want to get to the end of your life and think, oh, I should have tried that. And that actually really helped me. It helped me to reframe a lot because I realized I'm not answerable to anybody. Nobody's going to come and say, well, why didn't you stay being a doctor and unhappy and do a job that actually was draining you so much? And then, but still, I had a lot of guilt. So that was the other challenge. I felt a lot of guilt. The NHS is I don't have to spell it out, but we know it's on its knees. It's run on goodwill of all the amazing clinicians that are in there. And here I was going to leave and start painting, which in comparison just seems really frivolous, which I know isn't the truth. It's just the fear that I
Yeah.
had of what other people would be thinking. And that took me a long time to work through. That took me a couple of years at least to work
Mm.
through. Um, but I did. I've let go of that guilt. And interestingly, when I did let go of the guilt, suddenly that's when it, I realized I can help people in a different way. I can help people with that whole inner experience. So as a GP, I was very much focusing on the external, the physical, because that's what's prioritized. But the moments when I was actually able to connect with the patient's inner world, what they're thinking, how their fears, their hopes, that was just as powerful. That was just as
Mm.
powerful. And now as a coach, I can still do that, and I can still have those moments of holding space for people. And actually, I can do it in a much more powerful way. So I can, rather than just focusing on the physical, I can focus on their energy, on their inner state. But it was only once I'd let go of the guilt that these thoughts then kind of formed and have
Mm.
since grown. And now I am in the position where I don't feel guilty. I feel I had to leave the NHS, had to leave medicine. But in order for me to step into my real purpose, as it were, my mission, which is to bring this awareness back that there is a more embodied way of being in terms of healing. Um, we focus on the external, but we really need to make space and time for the inner world, for what's underneath the surface as
Beautiful,
well.
thank you. Oh God, that's there's so much in that. It's so lovely to hear that part of your story. Um, and so I'm really fascinated in that. So what's then the relationship between the creative act, the art you were doing, to this kind of expansion or extension or unfurling into the energy work and the coaching and that inner work that you were doing and are doing now to help people? How did that come about? And yeah, and what's the relationship really between the creative act and this energy work?
And I think first thing I want to say is that at the time, I I can answer this now in
Mm.
hindsight because I've gone through the journey. At the time, really, what I was doing was following my heart, following those
Mm.
impulses, following the voice that was speaking to me, and making space for that. And I was doing that within the painting sphere as well. So
Yeah.
for me, when I paint, it's a real meditation. It's me. I have a ritual before I paint, so I either do a meditation or some breath work and just allow tension to release. And it's me aligning my mind, body, and spirit to just be present and be still. And what I realized over time was that painting was actually the therapy for me. So
Mm.
it was an expression, of course, of what was within, but through that expression, through that freedom, I transformed myself. I became a different person. And it was the within that freedom, when you create something that you don't know where it's going to go, you don't know what direction it's going to take, you don't know what the outcome's going to be. I believe that has real impact on our brain, on our nervous system. It helps us to sit with uncertainty. It helps us to not need to know what direction necessarily our life's going to go in. And it allows us to hold different possibilities. So that was the routine, I think. That was the playground, as it were, the creating, the creative act, the painting. It was the playground that where I could express myself, but also my brain in the background was clearly making new neural connections, which then allowed me to have a bit of a broader view when it comes to healing, when it comes to energy work, because I wasn't really, so I do Reiki now, but I didn't really know much about Reiki or energy work at all. Um, and it was just again following my heart when one of my friends said, "Oh, I've got a session at a reduced price. Do you want to try it?" And initially I would have been like, "Well, sounds good, but excuse me." Sorry. Um, Initially I may have just said, "Oh no, it's okay." But because I was a bit more in tune and I just felt something pull me towards this, I went for it and had such an amazing session of Reiki. I felt something release. And again, I just had this feeling that this is something I need to train in. So yeah, I suppose the common theme is that I'm following my heart, I'm following that
Mm.
impulse, which sounds really romantic, I think, to a lot of people, but it really isn't, because I do still use my logical brain. I have to then use logic to question sometimes, but also put things into action, make
Yeah.
a plan. So it's kind of this like balance now that I have a bit more balance in my life where I can use heart and logic together. I hope
Nice.
that answers the question.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the thing is about, again, the following the heart, following that energy flow. It's not all kind of floaty and oh yeah, and it's not this kind of romantic, kind of gentle ride, is it? It's sometimes it's like clinging on for dear life at the roller coaster, and thinking, where are we going now?
Oh,
Um,
completely.
yeah, and and this yeah, I wonder if you say a little bit more about Reiki, because and what that means for you too, because you are a Reiki practitioner now, aren't you? You offer that as a service, um, and the the difference and the similarities between your work as a GP, because I've told the story on one of my episodes in the past of me moving from being a Methodist minister to being this artist sitting on top of a mountain in a Greek island doing ritual and meditation with the landscape. And one of the things I really had to work through is, and still am in some ways, is where does kind of authority and identity lie? Because so as a minister in the Christian church, the Methodist church, I was ordained, and there's this institution saying, yes, you have authority, you have this, you're kind of worth listening to, and all of that stuff. And as a doctor, you're registered with the General Medical Council, you've got all the degrees and all that, and so you've got this institution saying, yes, that you can trust this person, they're a doctor, trust me, I'm a doctor, you've got that.
Yeah.
So where does that come from for you now, or is it not important to you? Have you moved to a space where actually you can just be you and that's okay? And yeah, just say a little bit about that.
In these two different
Mm,
directions a lot of the time. So, yes, authority came from the GMC when I was a doctor. And there's still this, so there is still, I'm formally trained. So I'm formally trained as a coach. I've got that the diploma, and I'm an accredited coach as well. And then even with the Reiki, you have a lineage. So it started with Mikao Usui, who was a Japanese healer, and in the 18th century, and he's passed down the knowledge of Reiki down. So there is that kind of formal certificate that you do get. But aside from that, I am now very much, I'm not needing that external validation as much as I once used to need. Um, I still have that because I think that's important as well for people to have trust in what you're saying and some credibility. But in reality, it feels like I'm following a path that is my own.
Mm.
I still very much love science. I'm not disregarding science at all. I think it's an excellent framework and it's, it's amazing. I don't need to tell you, like, obviously the
No, no,
amazing
yeah,
medical
yeah,
developments that have happened. But my position or my philosophy now is that science is great, but it's not the be all and end all. It doesn't have all the answers. And really the thing that it really can't answer about is what we feel on the inside, our consciousness. It doesn't Science has theories about why we have this inner
Mm.
experience, but it doesn't have all the answers. And so the work I'm doing, I don't need necessarily the scientific validation for every single bit of what I do. And I feel that I'm this bridge at the moment between the science
Mm.
and the spirit or ancient wisdom, if you like.
Mm.
And so there's this like kind of balancing act where I'm grounded in some science, but I'm also open to mystery, the unknown, um, the subjective human experience, and because I think there's a need for us to expand our definition of what evidence counts. At the moment,
Yeah.
we're very focused on scientific evidence, but I feel there's another layer which is very personal to us, and it's our own inner experience, and that should be just as valid as what study tells us as well.
Yes. I think what one for me anyway, one of the keys to starting to trust that inner authority or find that inner authority is kind of stripping away all the kind of ego stuff, and some people call it like shadow work. And when is this kind of leading really just a kind of like a kind of self-aggrandizement, like, oh, this actually, this is just feeding my ego, this is feeding my sense of aren't I amazing, and everyone should listen to me. And when is it, which I don't think very now, or ever, and when is it actually this really gentle leading of the heart, which is much deeper and much surer. But we need to do that inner work to strip away so much of this kind of ego, false self stuff to begin to see that and really hear that, I think. And this is where I think
100%.
like coaching and energy work and soul accompaniment can really help when you've got a wise person just to hold the space to help you to reflect on all that. And I just want you started to touch on it there as well about this idea of evidence, because in many decades ago I went to medical school, and I've forgotten all of it now. But there was such an emphasis on evidence-based practice, and I guess working in the NHS is you need to have evidence-based practice. When you say doing work with Reiki and energy, is there an evidence base for that? Is that important that there's an evidence-based practice there, or have you had to kind of shift your brain and say, actually, I don't need to worry about that anymore?
The answer for me is yes, there is a bit of evidence for Reiki.
Hmm.
We know that it does improve well-being. It can reduce markers such as cortisol, which is a stress hormone.
Hmm.
But in reality, the studies are not, they're not big studies. There's no incentive to do large scale studies on something like Reiki or other energy practices. Because when traditionally, when clinical trials are done, the best trial is a blinded, double blinded trial where neither practitioner or patient, as it were, knows what treatment they're receiving or giving. And that can't be possible. You can't do that really with Reiki effectively. And so there's a lot of criticism of the studies that have been done, and they've been small scale. So even though there's a little bit of science, for me, what I try and remember is that, science doesn't, just because there's absence of evidence that doesn't mean that there's evidence of absence.
Mm.
And I think it comes down to the fact that science yet doesn't perhaps have the right tools to measure this type of energy, or
Yes.
um yeah, I mean, I could get into a really deep deep answer with this, but I'll try and keep it at a
Yeah,
simple level.
it's really
And
interesting.
so
But
for
carry on.
Yeah, and so for me, it's about, well, okay, if the physical evidence isn't quite there, then let's come to the inner experience. Let's
Mm.
come to what I experience as an individual when I receive Reiki, or the client when they receive Reiki, because to me, that's just as valid. And it comes to things, incorporates things like the placebo effect.
Mm.
So some people will say, well, surely Reiki is just placebo. It's the fact that you're giving somebody space and attention, and that's just, that's all it is. There's no energy. And I say, well, if it is placebo, let's just say it is just a placebo effect. Why is that? Why are we minimizing that?
Mm.
So, if for people that don't know what placebo is, it's basically in trials, a drug has to do better than a placebo, and a placebo is essentially a dummy pill or
Yeah.
treatment, like a sugar pill or something. It doesn't have any active ingredient. And what they found is that in a lot of studies, the placebo will do even better than the drug itself. Or it can improve pain by 30%, let's say, in some studies, just the placebo on
Mm.
its own. And that's even if the patient knows that they've got a placebo pill. So there's something there, and it's to do with belief and expectation. So, if somebody believes that this treatment's going to work, if they expect healing, um, we know that that's powerful. That can make a real difference, because thoughts and mind and body is linked. Thoughts have a real effect on our
Mm.
body. And so, even if it turns out that it's just a placebo effect, I think that's amazing. Because even as a doctor, I had patients that would make recoveries against what I thought, or, their
Yeah.
actual prognosis. And I'd always, and And I'd always thought, well, what is it? What is it that's causing this? And it'd be like, oh, it's probably just a placebo effect. But I always thought, well, isn't that amazing? So if somebody can get better without needing an actual drug, why are we not focusing on that? And so for me, Reiki really is the framework that perhaps allows people to access more of that inner healing state.
Mm.
Whereas as a doctor, I was seeing patients in a very kind of stressed state. I was stressed a lot of the time. Everything to do with going to the doctors is stressful generally, trying to get an appointment, sitting in the waiting room, the worry, obviously, about your symptoms and your diagnosis, investigations. It's all a ritual for stress. And so for me, the difference with Reiki is that it's all set up to really help to calm you, to activate your rest and
Mm.
digest, the opposite to the stress system, the parasympathetic. And, whilst I don't claim that I treat any medical conditions or anything else, it's about optimizing your body for inner healing. So
Mm.
creating the right conditions so that your body can activate its own healing. Um, so that, yeah, that's my kind of view on the scientific. So I don't necessarily need it. I'm not reliant on it for what I'm doing now.
About this for hours. It's really, really fascinating. Um, but we're going to come to the end shortly. But well, two things. Can people get in touch with you and work with you? I'm sure that what you offer has come across so well here, and also what would be a simple practice that you could offer people to
Mm.
just take into their day, something very simple, and just to move into that flow of the heart.
No, absolutely. So, in terms of getting in touch with me, my website is weharmonize.com. It's harmonize with an S. I can pass you on my links as well, and I'm
Yeah,
sure.
we'll put the links in the notes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so people are welcome to get in touch with me or, I love hearing from people anyway. So even if it's just an email with a comment about how you found this conversation, that's very welcome. And yeah, a little practice. So this is a practice that I love to give people because I think it's really simple and it's something that helps to get you out of your head and just back into your body. Those times when you're perhaps out on a walk and you've got all the best intentions, you want to enjoy the walk, but you don't seem to, the thoughts don't seem to kind of settle.
Mm.
This is a really simple practice and it's called the five senses. You might have come across it before, and people might have come across it before. And I just do it very simply. You just run through your five senses and you notice what you notice. So, what you see. And you're doing it, you're not trying to create a story, you're not trying to judge anything, you're just simply noticing what can you see. And try and notice something about that object or that you may not have noticed before, the texture and so on. And then what can you hear? What can you hear near you? Can you hear anything in the distance? What can you feel? And that's what can you feel physically on your body, perhaps your
Mm.
clothes or how you're sat in the wherever you are, or your feet on the ground, just noticing those sensations. Um, what can you smell? Can you smell anything? And you might not be able to, and that's okay. You're just noticing that. And then what can you taste? Again, nothing is a valid answer as well, but it's just going through those. And it's literally bringing you back into the body because it's
Mm.
bringing you back into your five senses. And then, just take a breath in and out and just taking that, even if you just do 1 minute of that, that practice will take you just a minute, but it just really helps to bring you
Beautiful,
down and ground you a little
beautiful.
bit. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. And thanks for your time and for sharing so much of your story. I think, it's given me so much to kind of like reflect on and kind of challenge me and comfort and all kinds of things. I'm sure people have found it really stimulating to hear your story and your thoughts at bringing this kind of the the kind of rational world to not to reject the rational world, but bring it into contact with the intuitive world of feeling and embodiedness and so on is really, really important because then these aren't, like you've been saying, these aren't separate things, are they? We're whole
No.
people. It's heart and head, and how do we, work in this kind of connected and aware and intuitive way, but in a way that honors the whole way of being human. I think that's really important. Thank you so much. It's been really, really wonderful to talk to you.
Oh, thank you for having me, Rick. It's been amazing, as always. Thank you.
Bless you. Lots of love.
That was one of the conversations that sends my thoughts spinning off in so many exciting directions. Rana has such a calm but authoritative presence, and I really recommend you looking up some of her art on Instagram as well. I'm so impressed by the courage it took for her to follow that heart intuition wherever it might have led, and also a way of holding the rational evidence-based practices with the more intuitive heart-focused ways of knowing. They're not in contradiction with each other, but when held skillfully can work together to enable us to flourish as whole human beings. So I'm interested in your response to Rana's story and what she had to say. Where does it resonate with your own journey and thoughts about our ways of knowing and being in the world? Drop a message in the comments. And also, please like and subscribe to this channel as well. That's a huge help to me. Thank you. I put Rana's details in the episode notes. If you'd like to contact her, you can inquire with her about her Reiki and coaching practice, or simply send her a message in response to her story. I know she'd love to hear from you. And if you'd like a one-to-one video call with me as you explore these ideas on your own journey, I've got over 15 years of experience accompanying people on their spiritual journeys. So do drop me a message and we can discuss what might work for you. Also, if you'd be interested in having your personal story and experience, your own personal mythology expressed in a piece of art, then I'll be happy to work with you too. It might be a painting like these, or a little sculpture or talisman, whatever will be helpful to you. Send me a message or follow the link attached to this channel. Now, thank you for listening. I hope you have a peaceful and gentle day. I'll be here again next time for more journeys with art, soul and landscape. Lots of love.